The Battle of the Somme, fought from July 1 to November 18, 1916, was one of the most devastating and infamous battles of the First World War, characterized by unprecedented carnage, tactical failures, and minimal territorial gains. It was launched by the British and French armies against the German Empire along a 15-mile front in the Somme River Valley in northern France. The original intention of the battle was to break through German lines and bring a swift end to the war, but its strategic objectives shifted significantly after the German offensive at Verdun in February 1916 forced the French to divert most of their resources. As a result, the burden of the Somme offensive fell heavily on the British, particularly the inexperienced volunteer army known as Kitchener's Army. Preparations for the attack included a week-long artillery bombardment during which over 1.5 million shells were fired at the German positions. British commanders believed this would destroy barbed wire defenses and enemy trenches, allowing infantry to cross no man's land with minimal resistance. However, the bombardment failed to significantly damage the well-fortified German bunkers, many of which were up to 30 feet underground and reinforced with concrete. On the morning of July 1, 1916, at 7:30 a.m., British troops went over the top, advancing in long, slow lines toward enemy positions. They were met with devastating machine gun and artillery fire. On this single day, the British Army suffered approximately 57,000 casualties, including nearly 20,000 killed, making it the bloodiest day in British military history. In the following weeks, the battle devolved into a brutal war of attrition, with both sides launching repeated assaults through shell-blasted landscapes turned into muddy wastelands by constant rain and artillery fire. Conditions in the trenches were horrendous. Soldiers contended with mud, rats, lice, the stench of decomposing corpses, and constant shelling. Morale was continually tested, yet soldiers persevered through sheer endurance and duty. Despite the horrific conditions, the Battle of the Somme saw important technological innovations. On September 15, the British introduced tanks to the battlefield for the first time in history during the Battle of Flers-Courcelette. Although mechanically unreliable and deployed in small numbers, these primitive tanks marked a significant turning point in modern warfare. Additionally, aircraft played a growing role in reconnaissance, artillery spotting, and dogfights over the battlefield, marking the increasing militarization of the skies. Throughout the 141 days of the campaign, British and French forces managed to capture a handful of villages and advance about 6 to 8 miles into German-held territory, but at an enormous human cost. By the end of the battle, the Allies had suffered over 620,000 casualties, while German losses were estimated at around 500,000, though exact numbers vary among sources. Despite these staggering losses, the battle failed to achieve a decisive breakthrough or end the stalemate on the Western Front. However, it did wear down the German army significantly and forced them to reassess their defensive strategies, eventually contributing to their decision to build the Hindenburg Line in early 1917. In the broader context of the war, the Somme became a symbol of the futility and horror of trench warfare and the immense human cost of industrialized conflict. It exposed the limitations of traditional military tactics in the face of modern firepower and demonstrated the need for more coordinated, flexible operations in the future. The legacy of the Battle of the Somme endures in collective memory as a poignant example of the suffering endured by millions during the Great War and the tragic consequences of strategic miscalculation.